Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Leading with Integrity podcast. A lot of managers in particular industries, one of which we're going to be talking about today, get a reputation for not always dealing with people in the best way or not always coming from a place of kindness. My guest today is all about helping employees find their happiness at work and helping leaders to keep themselves happy. His name is David Lebowski, and we'll be talking about his book, The Search for Work Happiness, helping leaders keep themselves and their people happy and mentally healthy, and a few other things about his experiences starting an ad agency and leading teams, as well as his own experiences of leadership as an employee earlier in his career.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast.
Leadership talk for the modern manager.
With your host, David Hatch.
David, thank you for joining me today, and congratulations on having such a great name.
Yeah. Thank you very much, David. Back to you, my brother.
Excellent. Well, great place to start, as always. I'm going to hand it over to you for a little while, let you talk a bit about yourself, your career background, what you're up to today, and what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well, my name's David Lebowski. I was born and raised in Louisiana here in the U.S. Got into computers really early, but in the South here, you can't really make very much money in computers. You have to be in some different industries. So that led me around the country to a few different bigger cities, but ultimately to where I am now, which is in New England, so the New York City, Connecticut area. I'm a little past 40 years old, and I've spent most of that in advertising, and I'd say 75% of that in pharmaceutical advertising. Really early in my career, I got involved in it, and it was really neat getting to work on cancer products and products that I really felt, people were using. It wasn't just like random websites or random products like that. I just wanted to make an impact any way that I knew how. As I got older in my career and started to develop different skill sets and different ways of thinking, I found, other ways to contribute. Anyhow, was working at an agency here in New York City. Had a business partner there who was like working a lot of late pitches with me. We really started to see how really good people were not getting treated well in the advertising world, and just corporate in general, but advertising was just running people to the ground, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. And these were like really good humans who were like really good at their job, but you take the best at what they do and you put them at hour 80 and they're not really that good. So there was a point where we just sort of looked at each other and like, maybe we can try to do this better. So we went off in early 2019, started a little digital agency. Not too long after that, COVID happened. People stopped wanting to touch things. So all the print budgets started shifting to digital budgets. So out of nowhere, we went from 2 to 23, 24 people over the course of like 2.5 years. And so that led me to last September, after about 3 or 4 years. I left the company just to do some more solo work. It was really neat, getting to create a place that really treated humans right, didn't run people into the ground, put a lot of unique things in place, which we'll talk about, I think, later, about not pitching for work, not keeping up with people's time, just trying to treat humans better. But it's still advertising and it's still fast. And so after a few years, the pace just really wasn't my taste. But my business partner, who's got unbelievable business acumen, I knew he would have no problem like keeping that thing running and keep growing it while still treating people great. So when it wasn't right for me, but it was still right for him, we worked it out where I could go do some solo consulting and write a book, which is sort of the last thing that I just did. And a part of the reason I'm, trying to get out there and meet some people and talk a little is basically wrote a book about how to treat people better in the workplace. So from not overworking them to just trying to give junior employees more of a voice. So it's a nice little book. It's called The Search for Work Happiness, and that sort of puts me where I'm at today. I'm still doing a little building of web products and trying to get my hands still on some apps, and still like building things, but trying to concurrently get a little of my message out. Just a kinder businessman, like just get leaders to think a little more about how they treat the people around them, So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at today.
Well, first of all, it's nice to hear for a change a business that had a positive result from COVID, because most companies, it was a pretty negative impact, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were very blessed, and I always have to be careful when I associate the two things. Anytime good goes well in your life, when not a lot of good's going around, it's really tricky. But there was a direct correlation, and people saying, I either don't want to touch a print piece, my customers don't want to touch print pieces, or can we at least put QR codes on them and drive to something that's digital and more immersive? So it definitely triggered an insane slew of work that I don't think we were expecting.
Yeah, and I'm sure it has. I mean, if every sector went that way as well and kind of shifted more towards digital and away from things that are less good for the planet, like print and all the carbon footprint involved in all of that, I mean, can only be a wider good, can't it? So, yeah, all for that.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And so moving out on your own and writing a book.
Kind of crazy, man. I think I benefited a little. My wife has most of her career ran editorial departments and not the kind like in a newspaper, but in ad agencies, they basically like proofreaders and fact checkers. And so I definitely was not alone in the house just putting things on paper. So I definitely, like anything, nothing good's built alone. So I definitely had a nice benefit there. But, it developed over the course of years as we grew the agency, just trying to find different ways to treat people well versus just like bonuses and time off. And so I had a lot of thoughts built up and a lot of approaches kind of stored in the bank. And we were posting about them a little socially, but you don't want to get too pushy and widespread with that when you're also trying to grow a business, because the business needs to keep its image and its face. So now it was nice to just be able to like gather them all up and get them into one cohesive story and sort of share it out.
The ad world has a certain reputation, doesn't it? But it sounds like that reputation's well deserved.
Yeah, look, like probably any industry with a lot of problems, there are some amazing humans in it doing great things. But the big core of everything is the amount of hours put in. I often tell people that I feel like if you sleep deprived Michael Jordan and made him shoot some layups, you probably miss some of them. But we just like continually do it. I think probably more than most other industries. I think that's where a lot of the rut comes from, is just like the hours and the grind, and you build all this camaraderie with people, and you almost like want to go to work and spend time, but it's 70 hours. It doesn't matter how happy you think you are, your work's just not going to be up to par. And so it's, and all that stuff catches up to you. So it's definitely something I think advertising's probably earned.
Yeah. I mean, I guess a lot of people from outside the industry, myself included, you hear ad world and you think Mad Men or something like that, don't you?
Yeah. And I do think we've came a long way with a lot of those, I guess, Mad Men-ish things. Like I don't feel like women are talked to the same way they are in that show anymore. Like I do think we definitely made a lot of progress, but I would say the hours probably haven't gotten better and maybe have gotten worse. Yeah.
And presumably less drinking in the office as well. Yeah.
I don't.
No comment.
You were breaking up there a little.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, is that the kind of thing that led you to writing a book about treating humans better in the workplace?
Yeah, like I feel like our purpose is to find a way to make impact however we can. And so the first way I was doing that was partnering with someone with a like mind to try to like really put those things into practice and see if you don't make people do timesheets and you actually let them have side hustles that you know about, can that work? So it was really, that was like the first attempt at making an impact with the things I felt, was teaming up with him and putting them into place. So now, like, once I saw that works, it was almost like a duh moment when I left. It's like, people don't have to take some of these approaches, but a lot of them are just a little different than the norm and different what people try. So maybe if I collect them all, there's some leader out there that is trying to find a way to like dust off some of his approaches, or just like maybe thinks he's treating people well, but it's not resonating the same way, and he's not getting the results, or she's not getting the results. So I think that was the hope, was these things clearly worked when we put them into practice. Not everyone can throw timesheets out the window or say no to the big bad new business pitch machine. Not everyone can do that, but if you're trying to at least eliminate the bad parts of it, if like one person reads something in here and tries it and it works, I think that's probably the main goal.
Yeah, fair enough. And you've answered the next question as well, which was, what are you trying to achieve with the book? So two for one there. Well done.
Oh yeah. That's probably it, man, is to just hopefully splash water on the face of some leader that needs it. I needed it so many times in my life. So I think it's up to all of us to try to almost like check each other in the mirror. And, a lot of the things I talk about in this book, I even admit in the book I struggle with. Great lessons don't always come from knocking something out of the park. So it's just really about trying to treat people better. And ultimately, that really is the only point in this book. It was, I definitely had some personal things I wanted to achieve, like trying to, push myself to be a better writer. There's like some like small human refinement stuff for me, but that's just the intent. Like, is there someone out there that just nothing's working for them as a leader and they just want to switch it up a little and be a little kinder in business? And that's it. That's really the only intent of this.
That's all you need, isn't it? It's a great message, great intent. And I think it's so well aligned with all of the changes that we've kind of seen in the workplace as a result of the COVID years anyway.
Absolutely.
Like the Great Resignation, people throw that out a lot, and I know I always mention it, but it did shift the way people view work, didn't it? And that relationship between managers and staff changed as well. And I think that's exactly the kind of thing that you're talking about, really. It's how to do it better after we've been through all of that together, really.
It's nice. It put the power a little back in the hands of the employee versus the employer. It's always nice when that shift happens to the little guy,
I'm sure a lot of employers don't see it that way, but I agree with you.
Yeah. If they're listening and don't agree, too bad. As humans, I'm sure they would feel that way if they weren't them. It's everyone loves when the little man gets a shot, and it's not just employees. It's like freelancers and vendors and like small business partners to like the larger companies that just kind of get bullied around and not treated as their own. And so, yeah, they should be better, get better.
Agreed. Tell us more then about the experience of starting up the agency. What was that like? How did you find that startup experience, I guess we'd call it?
Whew. Oh man, it was very fast. I think I just kind of mentioned that, and that drove everything. You learn so much about the things you do as a leader and how they impact everybody. Like for example, I wake up 3:30, 4 o'clock every day. I got in the habit, and I thought I was like really making impact in just like my progression before people are even waking up. So it was a nice habit. But then, my 4 to 7 a.m. antics, when you've got a team of 20 something people that are on these email chains, the impact of your timing of just sending things out has such a negative, almost pressure put to it. But you don't see those things when things are moving really fast. You're just like, you're hiring people, and we're very clearly putting things in place to be kind to people and to treat them right. But at the same time, you're not treating them right in other areas. So I think that's the best way I can describe it. It was, at least for me, the first time doing that. So it's like trying to, the phrase, like trying to build a plane while you fly. I was definitely trying to understand how to refine things I didn't even realize were a problem. I actually thought those things were benefits to everyone. Like, they get into work. I've already knocked out a bunch of stuff. I just completely saw things the wrong way. And so I think it was such an eye-opening experience. Like, everyone has problems. Someone's going to come into work and they just had a fight at home, or someone's not happy it could not even be work related. Like, every day, the bigger your team gets, it's not just like managing inside some company either. Like, you're putting food on their table. Like, there's just fast and a lot of pressure, and I have no problem admitting I just wasn't really built for it. I think a 5, 6, 7 person company probably would have been fine and more my style. I just didn't. I don't think you're getting the best me at that size and that speed. But man, you're getting the best of my business partner and the people under him. So everything, I was blessed, man. I was able to just kind of leave, and nothing. Everyone else was just like moving forward and happy at what we built, and happy at the environment and the people we chose. But for me, it was just too fast. And advertising always is, no matter what you do or put in place, it's just fast. And that was the one thing I think that I thought I could change that I couldn't, that ended up just being more than I could deal with, I think.
But look at it on the positive side. I mean, you've recognized that problem and addressed it. And I think that's the thing that all good leaders are able to do. Recognizing it is less than half the battle, in my view, because everyone can see the problem, right? It's actually being able to, recognize the solution as well, or in some cases actually be sort of humble and proactive enough and actually do something about it and make yourself do it. Because quite a lot of times it's something you wouldn't want to do it. There's a lot of people who would find themselves in a situation like that, but they would say, well, look, I started this company. I'm not walking away from it. I don't care if other people think it's not working for them. This is my company. That's the way I'm doing it. So I'm going to keep going. And ultimately they drive it into the ground. So
I wanted to be happy also. I didn't just want to create a place for other people to be happy. I wanted to, and that's the search for work happiness being the title's partly that. It's like I'm still searching, and everyone is, but everyone's search is different. And you can create a beautiful space that people love, and you not actually love the space that you create. So it's a real thing. It happened. It's super proud of what we created that actually just wasn't fitting for myself. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. As you should be. I think you've done the right thing. Yeah. I appreciate it. Counts for much, but
yeah. No, I appreciate it.
So tell us a bit more then about the tech side of the business, because I know that you're more interested in sort of the technology piece.
Yeah. So I started in design, but I was spending anything I would make as a freelancer early on, paying someone to program it. And that stuff, I would say it energized me when I would see great execution of it. I wouldn't say that I really wanted to have to go through learning code to do so, but I got into it, and just being able to design something and then actually bring it to life the way that I thought it should be brought to life. That like connected everything in my head. And so that's what I've done in my career for over a decade, but, there's a big gap between designers and developers. So as I grew into more management stuff, that's kind of what I did, at the agency level, was sort of bridge that gap, understanding, what dev really needs from a designer to pull off, what they really envision. So that's what at a work level drives me, not at a human level, but at a work level. I see a beautifully coded site with lots of animation and loads really nice. And it's just like a great display of the product. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm opening some software. It kind of gets me moving. And so, I'd still have that love, and, life's about a good mix. And, it's nice to finally get to a place in my career where I can mix in some for good efforts for like the book and my messaging. But at the same time, I want it all to move beautifully and look beautifully. And so I think that's where these two things intersect, probably, is keeping myself feel fresh about the other. So I really do try to mix the two of them 50-50 in my life. I try to keep up with that. I don't keep up with my wife in hours. I try to keep up with them in mix. And that's kind of where I try to rest, is just like about 50% of just like product work, and whether it's building a product or, animation or learning or building. And then I try to spend the other 50%. I'm just doing a little like for good social stuff, and, writing the book. And I have a few pro bono things I'm working on with a few agencies. So, just trying to have a good mix in my life, man. It's really what I'm at.
Yeah. Well, that's the dream, isn't it?
Well, pushing for it, man. Pushing for it. It doesn't, of course, it never works out just like you want it to, but, every step towards, getting as close to something consistent like that is just, it feels like progress.
Yeah. One thing we've not really touched on yet is the mental health aspect of it. So, I mean, what is it that drives you to try and foster better mental health in the workplace?
I would say that the home I grew up in, probably refined that a little. Like my brother raised me, and my mother was probably going through a lot, and so I think I developed a sensitivity early on to people crying or people being sad or just not really being treated right. And my brother did too, and he took it sort of a different direction. He went to the military, and it's much more, he's much less of a free bird than I am at it. I always just trying to solve things differently every day. Like, he's very, very regimented, but I think just seeing some early on not great treatment, and then working in advertising where I'm just meeting all these good humans who are losing their mental health, trying to move up the ladder, always being part of new business pitches or product launches where they're sleeping at work. And of course, you made the drinking comment earlier. Everybody wants to fit in. So there's a lot of factors that add into workplace culture, I would say. And I just think so many people are sitting at their desk breaking down a little, because even myself, when I was kind of hitting my point at the last company, you've got all these people in your life, but you're still kind of alone, like in your thoughts. And I built this, or had helped build this place where I thought a lot of stuff was in place, but once you get into it, you realize you still really don't really know what to do or how to handle it. So I personally wasn't like, I wasn't really like breaking down. I know mental health is much more of a struggle for a lot of people in life. But just because I don't experience it doesn't mean I shouldn't be on the hook for creating a place good for it. And I think just not seeing that and having friends going through it concurrently just drove me to it. I didn't go to school for it. I don't. No one in my family's really battled with it, but it's just like, just got blessed to be around a lot of really badass humans who are struggling, and there's nothing in place for them. So it just floored me how all of these like people that are clearly good humans aren't managing with any sense towards that. And it's not because they're bad, but management, like training, that's not how it works. Like management training doesn't come with people telling you about mental health issues that people could be going through. It's just, so it's probably a fundamental thing now that I'm saying that out loud. Managers probably need some more formal training and some more informal mentoring around what could your people be going through? What can you do to create a better environment for them? So they feel ultimately comfortable to ask for help when that time comes. So, yeah, I think it just organically sort of happened with a mix of things in life.
I think it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, I don't know what it's like in the States, but certainly in the UK, it's becoming a lot more. I mean, it used to be quite heavily stigmatized. It wasn't something you spoke about at work. And if you did, you could expect your managers to sort of not punish you necessarily, but it would be frowned upon in the management meetings.
Yeah. It's not gladiatorial enough.
Yeah, or like admitting weakness almost, like you're not up to the job.
And when you are trying to move up in your career, like
exactly.
The CEO asks you to work all night on a project, you take that as like an honor. But the repercussions after doing, like, no one really knows what they're getting into. It's just not even fair to the junior crowd. The mid-level crowd's probably starting to know better, and the senior crowd knows better. I think it's a mix.
Yeah, it does become self-fulfilling though, doesn't it? Because there's that expectation, and once you get to that senior level, your perspective on it changes to a certain extent, because you're like, or a lot of people anyway, they're like, well, yeah, I understand that there's a problem, but also I need this work to get done. So,
and I believe you should have to earn your stripes as a junior person. There just needs to be some guardrails put to protect that isn't taken advantage of.
100%.
Because 100%. It is.
Yeah. And I think there's quite a lot of schemes, certainly in the UK now, and there's a whole thing now where there's always been like first aid training, but now there's mental health first aid training.
That's awesome.
Things like that. And a lot of employers will sponsor that and are starting to recognize the value of having that support available to their people. Because ultimately, if you can support them when they hit those struggles, when they hit burnout and all these other kind of stress related issues, then they're going to stay with you longer. They're going to be productive for longer. They're going to be happier at work.
Yeah.
And you get better results. So
that's awesome that you'll have that in place there.
It is still optional, but I think a lot of employers are taking that option now.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk a bit more about leadership then, because so many of these topics feed very, very nicely into leadership. So
yeah, awesome.
What then? First question on leadership then. What's the biggest leadership lesson that you've learned from your career so far?
I grew up in like a really racist and fanatically religious area in the South. I mean, all the South is kind of that way, but where I grew up very especially. And, I had this really great brother and really great mother that I think barricaded me from ever adopting that kind of closed-minded way of thinking. But just because I wasn't adopting it, I think it didn't mean that I was accepting it. It just meant that I wasn't becoming a hateful, bitter person, or I wasn't like growing up the way those people kind of were. But for me, still the biggest leadership in life was actually applying that when I moved out of the South and went into the melting pot of basically the rest of the company. It's just like learning how every human really is equal and how I go about treating them that way. And until I did that, I don't really think I deserved to be a leader. You know, I was told by my mother and brother, like, don't section off the way you feel about someone because of gender or religion or sexual preference. Like, they told me that in my small little bubble, but the big bubble kind of said something different. So until I actually moved out of the South, which Chicago is the first place that I went, when I actually moved there for the first time, I was exposed to all these different ways of life. I think I really was able to understand, like, oh, wow, everybody in this melting pot is actually pretty amazing. There's some beautiful people out here. And until I really looked at everybody that way, I couldn't be a leader. So that was, I say it's the biggest leadership lesson I've ever learned, because it took me like 30 years to really learn it, beaten into my skull. But your environment, man, has such an impact on you that no matter what I was taught at home, it's just like you start to question and you start to evolve to what's around you. And the second I was exposed to other walks of life, I was like, what type of sham have I been in my entire life? And having that awakening was definitely, that took me from wanting to being a leader and thinking I was one to actually being one, I think.
It's an interesting one. Can't talk much about the South in America because, I think I went to Texas once on holiday as a kid, and that was about it. So,
I was an hour and a half from Texas.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's the size of the country. I mean, here an hour and a half gets you halfway across the country. But
that's amazing.
Maybe not halfway. I'm exaggerating. But I mean, the UK and England in particular have some similar challenges, or I think then it's probably fair to say that here it's a bit more implicit. It's a bit more under the surface and less out in the open quite a lot of the times. And it is difficult as well to talk about it as two white guys from predominantly white backgrounds. But
totally.
But it's I think the thing that I've always struggled with is understanding that mindset. Like, if all you want is people who are like you and think like you, why don't people realize the kind of what they're missing there? I mean, decision making alone, like, you got a group think, haven't you? There's a well established problem that you won't have quality decisions if you don't have diverse opinions. And I think you could apply the same to any structure, really, couldn't you? And it's, I don't know,
just like passed down from generation to generation. I feel like if just like one generation stopped, it would stop. I feel like it's just, you're raised in a racist household, you're likely to turn out racist. You're raised in a Christian household, you're likely to turn out Christian. Just like what we keep putting the next generation around is just gonna kind of keep resurfacing. So I just I'm not going to say I don't have hope for it, but it definitely is a change that doesn't happen overnight or over a decade, really.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how much of it is intentional and how much of it is just like the perceived normality, isn't it? It's you don't think about it if that's all you've ever known.
Oh yeah, a lot of that down there is, at least at the younger ages, when you're raised in it, it's not hateful. It's just they're different, and different is just more exclusionary. But I say that there's a lot of just really mean people there too. So it's nice to get out of that area in general.
Yeah, I think the key is what you said. It's having the open mind, and not assuming that you already know everything.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So what is then the one thing that you think all leaders and managers should do?
So I want to say something a little, it'd be easy to just like stay in the same topic, like start treating everybody the same. We just talked about that. There's one thing that that I feel like if every single manager shifted, it's very, very tiny, but it would make just like the next few generations of workforce that come up so much more solid. It's to stop depending on annual reviews to give career molding feedback to the people you lead and manage. Like, start making it a very recurring thing, especially with your junior people, to have conversations, constant meetings. Don't talk about development once a year. Talk about it throughout the year. Don't make people wait a year to know if they're going in the wrong direction or where they stand. And what sucks about that whole waiting a year thing is if your manager sucks, the culmination of that year usually just like results in an annual review that doesn't do anything for you in the first place, doesn't really help you along your goals, or really leaving you feeling like you have like pure steps to move forward with. And I unfortunately see in a lot of junior employees, there's like some developmental stuff missing because we're like waiting till once a year and taking them in this conference room and going down a checklist without really looking at them and then moving them along the way. It's like, for that once a year meeting, like, it might not be big for you. It's huge for them. Take them out to a sushi restaurant and talk to them. Make that more of like a culmination and an event, but like, don't depend on that for feedback. Like, you should be having these type of meetings 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year, not once a year. So that would be, I guess, my one, like, pass it down to leader. If just everyone did that, the next crop or the crop under that of junior talent that's growing just be so much more refined, and then they'll treat the next people the same way. So we just kind of start dominoes down a different path, you know?
I've always hated the annual appraisal. It's just horrid.
It's horrid.
And it's horrid. And it's so counterproductive as well. Because as you say, like if you save up all your feedback for a whole year, then, you know, by the time you actually deliver it, most of it's not relevant anymore.
Absolutely.
Or you can't remember what it was about or whatever.
Absolutely.
And you lose the lesson because you've forgotten about it. You've just written down maybe a sentence in a notebook somewhere and put it in a drawer for a year.
It's
and I think
such a bad process.
It really is. So for feedback to be useful, it has to be a few things, but one of those is timely. It's got to be
100%.
You know, quickly.
Yeah. You're spot on there. It's gotta be in the moment.
Yeah.
Especially with the amount of information available. You just tell your employee they're doing something wrong, they'll just YouTube it and figure out how to do it, and they'll come into work the next day and do it better. Just like people, well, just wait a year. It's so funny.
Yeah. I mean, I guess people would argue it's like kind of the aggregate of the performance over a year, but that's so difficult.
So still do it. Just make that one of the approaches. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would say monthly, at least, you should be having those conversations. And even if you don't have any pressing feedback that you want to give that month, talk about what their goals are. Like, what do you want to achieve this year or in your career? How can I, as your manager, help? You know, that sort of thing.
If you're a good boss and like kind and friendly and approachable, and I'm not saying become the best friend of the people you're managing, but like if you really are, they're just going to come talk to you anyways. And it shouldn't even be a thing. You shouldn't have to put things on a calendar. It's just have a relationship with the people that are under you. It sounds simple. I don't understand why it's not, though.
Yeah, it's simple, but it's not always easy, is it? For some managers anyway.
Yeah, no, it isn't.
But you're absolutely right. That's it. You want to build that culture where they come to you, because if you have that, then they're more likely to come to you when things go wrong as well. And that's what you want. You need to know when things are going wrong. So,
and if they don't want to, they don't want to. But some people just won't. Some people want to say it themselves, and that's fine, but that shouldn't be your fault.
Yes. Yeah. True. Yeah. Anyway, I could complain about that for hours. Let's move on. Right. This is an interesting question. I'm curious to see what you say to this one. What has been your own personal best experience of leadership in the workplace?
I would say that doesn't exist with one person. So, to me, it's the best leadership exists when it's multiple layers. of good leaders, like the product under that, like that to me has been the best experience of leadership in the workplace. When I went to San Francisco, I had just like the most amazing leader over me who 15 years later was in my wedding. But he was still learning too. But like right above him was this other layer of who I consider a few legends that were just like supplanting what was above me. And so I would see my leader getting refined, and then it would get passed down to me. And I feel like once that stuff goes through like a filter or two of refinement before it gets chewed, that's just the person that receives that is getting the best experience of leadership. It's like the Voltron of leadership was created. And it was even more clear when, as every company does, like investors get involved, things start to change, and that layer of legends above my boss became one like completely useless tyrant. When that got swapped out, you instantly saw everything go the opposite direction, and our 12-person like sniper unit of a department became nothing. And then now everything I hear is it doesn't even exist anymore. And I think it's because we only had that one layer of good leadership now, and they've removed that second. So I think that's what I would say is to really provide the best experience of leadership to your team. You have to double stack at least layers of just like solid, good human leaders. And I haven't really experienced that much in my career, but it's very clear when you do that, the result.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever experienced that. I'm kind of jealous.
Oh yeah. Oh man, but talk about great happiness brings great sadness whenever things change. And I feel like one day into the reorganization, we're all just like, oh man. You could just tell when there's not alignment in the multiple layers above you. It's all over.
Yeah. It's better to have loved than lost, though, right?
Yeah, no. It taught a lot, though. It taught me a lot. And I still, the layer of legends and the boss are still all very special humans to me. So yeah, I was very blessed there for sure.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot about it, doesn't it? The fact that all those years later, you still look back on that as such a positive experience. I mean, that's the lasting impact that leadership can have. Well, and it was a culture of leadership, really, in that organization, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a special, like, I feel like you think about high school, you probably, or like going to school, you probably have like this one moment in time there where it was like my group of friends were perfect. Everything around me was perfect. That was definitely the point in my career where it's like I landed under and around some really amazing people, and you soak that up while it lasts. And a few years later, it doesn't last anymore, and you try to, move on and grow in different areas. But yeah, it was I'll keep saying it, man. I'm so blessed to just be around people who understood leadership and kindness at the same time. It's just not often.
Yeah, as I say, very jealous. Yeah, I mean, I've worked in some great teams over the years, but I never had that kind of multiple levels of excellent leadership that you're talking about.
It was awesome.
But so, yeah, very interesting example. I've not heard it explained that way before, so I like it.
Yeah, awesome.
I might even steal it.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to, my friend. You already have my name. You can just quote David.
That's good. Yeah, good point. Excellent. Well, the listeners heard it here first. I've just been granted permission. So anyway, can you give us then your top 3 tips for anyone who is thinking about or already starting their own business?
All right. Number 1, do it now. There's like such a plethora of free or insanely cheap tools right now. I just don't know how long that's going to last. From like Canva to business management tools to just like free courses online. Social media obviously allows you to market like you've got a Super Bowl budget. Open up a tab on your browser right now and start a business license in your state or location or however it works in your country. Just like go and do it. That would be my recommendation. Just like now's the time. Secondly, draw lines in the sand from the start and don't depend on them. And I'm talking about when you tell a client, my teams don't work weekends. You can't tell your client that in a year. You have to start off with that. You have to lay your foundation as a company. Like what is your morals? What are you not going to budge on? Do you want people to have unlimited vacation days and no one works on Friday? People might say clients aren't going to buy that. Yes, they will. If they want to work with you and you tell them up front, they will. If they want to work with you, they will. So I would just say early on, make your decisions, especially if it's like unique to normal business process. Get that stuff out early. And if people want to work with you, they're going to work with you. And then lastly, find a solid human or humans, but probably just a human would be my recommendation that you really trust to do it with. I said it earlier, nothing really happens good alone. There's exceptions to every rule, of course, but make sure that you start your business with someone that, and this is going to sound weird, someone that you don't just trust to start a business with, but someone that you trust to end a business with. Would they be rational humans if you didn't want to do it anymore? Do you trust them enough with big financial decisions like that? And I'm not saying get into a business looking at the end, but there's some major things that happen over the course of starting an agency, whether it's big success, big failure, or the middle where you're just like struggling to figure it out. There's all of that is going to really push to the brink your trust with a person. So, look at it like a marriage. Could you every single day see this person's face? And do you think they'd be rational in the good and bad, and lock on to that person? Cause you pick a bad partner. I've seen it go wrong for so many people. I was again blessed and lucky, but I've seen it go wrong for a lot of people. You can hire all the great talent you want, great humans, bad leadership. It's just all going down. So yeah, do it now, draw a line in the sand and find someone to do it with. Don't jump in the boat alone.
3 really great lessons. Yeah. I like, particularly like the last one. I think, yeah. I mean, you jokingly said think of it like a marriage, but actually it's quite similar to a marriage, isn't it? You've got to be really confident in that person because, plan for success. If it all goes really, really stunningly well, then that relationship could define your life as much as a marriage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah. Very good point. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm running out of questions.
Leadership Heroes.
Last question, and I call this Leadership Heroes. If you had to pick one person, alive or dead, past, present, real, fictitious, it could be somebody you've met or somebody you've read about, who in your opinion would perfectly embody leadership, who would that person be and why?
I'm going to have to default to my brother on this, and only because I don't believe perfection and leadership exists elsewhere. And maybe that's just because I haven't been exposed to it, but to me, there's a certain level of leadership that can't be taught. It's that uncanny ability, even at a young age, to like step into, at least for me with him, like step into a father role almost, understand how to like when to step in and teach me, when to let me burn, without being taught that. And then to just concurrently in his own life, went to the military, just finished his 20th year. He's like a staff sergeant at this point. So clearly had like leadership in his blood, and but his ability to like lead strangers like that, but like more gently, as I was being raised by him and my mother, just innate understanding of when to push, when to pull, when to support, when to not. So yeah, every leader's flawed, including my brother. But leadership is about knowing where you're flawed and evolving around that. And he did it with such grace. Yeah, it's hard for me to really slot anyone else into this. To me, perfect leadership is understanding who you're leading, what they need, and not getting online and looking up like techniques, just like understanding how to take care of them and how to lead them. That's just, there's not many people like that on earth. So I would probably say my brother.
Yeah, nice. Always love it when there is a personal connection to the answers. I don't know if we've had brother before. Might have once. I've had parents a few times, but I mean, he sounds like a great leader, and he obviously must have some great leadership skills to have made it as far as he has in the military as well.
Man, I can't imagine doing anything 20 years. Nevertheless, like something that multiple wars, multiple deployments internally inside the country to just help with disasters and things like that. I definitely have not done something for 20 years straight before. That is for sure.
No, I don't think many people have outside of, government and military, isn't it? That's the places people tend to stick.
So, that probably adds to like the leadership qualities too, just like longevity, dependability, just like there's so many things to do that for that long while also being that same type of force in your personal life and different manners, even from afar. It's kind of unique.
Yeah. Oh, what a great example.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very blessed with. Everyone has their struggles growing up. Things are not always great and peachy, but I've definitely been blessed to be around some great leaders in business and have an amazing small family that helped instill some stuff early on that put me in a good position when I was older. So I can't thank all of them enough for that, for sure.
Good on them. Well, I run out of things to ask you. I think the only other real thing left is to give you the chance, if you want to point the listeners towards your website or get a copy of the book, anything like that, feel free.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. Just published, it's called The Search for Work Happiness, a paperback, hardcover, audiobooks on Audible and Spotify and Apple Books, I believe. Anyone that really just wants to find a few new tricks to treat people a little different in leadership, whether it's some management techniques, some really fun approaches in there, like partnering with your employees to get them to have side hustles, and then even funding some of those side hustles to do internal gifts, just finding new ways to support your people. So it's not really all just about change a policy, things be better. It's definitely some really human approaches in there as well. Just sending people stuff when they're sick versus being suspicious if they're really sick. Just like being a better person in general. So if anyone cares to do so, I'd love to support there. But otherwise, thank you for listening to this podcast, David. Really appreciate everything that you do, the content you put out into the world. It's comes from a good place, so I appreciate that.
Well, likewise, it's been great talking to you and appreciate you.
Awesome.
Thanks again to David for his time and that conversation. And it's always great to hear from someone who has a more positive and forward-looking approach to leadership among many of the other topics that we discussed. If you would like to get a copy of David's book, I'll put a link to his website in the episode description. If any of the subjects that we talked about today have sounded familiar to you, if you are that first-time founder or new manager or just someone who's struggling with leadership and you're working in one of these tech-driven environments, whatever industry that may be in, and you need some help with your leadership. You want to learn better skills at how to deal with your people, get the best from them, and make sure that they're happy, fulfilled, and mentally healthy at work, then please do reach out and get in touch with me. I do have a leadership program that can help you with that problem. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can visit the website, which is www.leadernotaboss.co.uk/sign up. And I'll put both of those links as well in the episode description so you can find it easily. Awesome. Well, thanks for listening this far. I hope you found it helpful, enlightening, enjoyable. And I hope also that you will join us again next week. And in the meantime, remember, be a leader, not a boss.